Hi students, this is yet another video on banking operations, and I thought of making another video to give you a more simplified version of paying banker. As was discussed in the previous video relating to paying banker, I have told you that the bank has got a responsibility or a duty to pay the customer's money as and when it is demanded by the customer. So if the customer presents a check which is called as the customer's mandate, then the bank is responsible to pay the money lying in the account of the customer. Similarly, if the customer has given a standing instruction to the bank that their bills have to be paid, or their club and subscription fees have to be paid, or some payment has to be done on account of rent, things like that, then the bank is having a duty to pay such amounts on behalf of the customer. In its capacity as an agent of the customer, the bank is required to make such payments. So under all these situations, the bank gets the role of a paying banker. Also, if any requirement is made by a customer for preparing demand draft or paying of money through mail transfers, here also the bank is under obligation to satisfy the needs of the customer. So how does a bank take precaution while making payments to the customer? The bank has got to be extremely vigilant while handling checks which are to be paid upon. Now, what are the things that has to be covered while making the payment on the checks? First and foremost, the bank has to consider whether there is enough funds in the account of the customer. Suppose there is a pre-arrangement which is made between the bank and the customer, such as an overdraft facility, then in that case, even if there are insufficient funds in the account of the customer, the bank can still arrange to pay the money. But apart from that, the bank has to consider this very important point, which is sufficiency of funds in the accounts of the customer. Now let us consider some more points which a bank should consider before paying on a check. The bank has to ensure that the check which is presented for payment is in a proper form. What is meant by proper form? Proper form means the printed check leaves which are there in the checkbooks. Now these check leaves come with some pre-printed information such as the account number, and there is specification regarding the amount to be entered into. So there are blanks provided where the customer just needs to fill up the information. So with this check leaf, the customer can withdraw money from their account. Now the check leaves are provided so that the customer can just fill up the amount and the details as to the payee and put their signature on it. Now what the bank has to consider here is that the check leaves belong to the branch of the bank. It may be noted here that the check leaves of some other bank can also be presented to the bank. The only thing that the bank should take care is that there is no fraudulent intention by the customer, and there is no forgery of the customer's signature. So sometimes even if the customer has taken a check leaf of another person belonging to the same branch and then tries to withdraw the money, that can be done provided the intentions are not fraudulent. Bank should refuse to make payment if the form in which this demand is made on the bank is on a piece of paper. So in such cases, the bank can make it compulsory for the customer to get a check leaf or to use the withdrawal slip, and upon that they can withdraw the money. Now, the drawing of a check by the customer on a check leaf is always convenient, as the customer needs to only fill in the blanks. The bank has to ensure that all the particulars are properly filled in and that there is no chance of the check being dishonored for one confusion or the other. Moreover, when the customer demands the money using the check leaf, it serves another useful purpose, because there are counterfoil provided in the checkbook on which the customer can make a record of the reason for which the payments were made. This can be used as a tracing measure whenever needed. Also, if the check is issued, then the customer, if they want to stop the payment, which is technically called as countermand, COUNTERMAND. So if the customer wants to make a stop payment of the check, they can instruct the bank by quoting the serial number of the check. So in case of stop payment also, it becomes useful if the customer is using a check for making payments. Also, if the checks are drawn, the serial number of the check can be noted by the bank, and the bank can understand whether there is a forgery done or not. For example, when a check is presented for payment, the bank can verify the serial number of the check, and through that they can understand whether the checkbook was issued to the customer or not. So these are the advantages of using a check, and the bank has to ensure that the checks are completely filled in, that is, the date is put in, the payee's name or institution's name is mentioned over there, the amount is put both in words and figures, the signature has been put by the customer or the drawer. So all these things, if it is taken into consideration, then the bank can accept the check for payment. Also, it should be noted that the bank's duty to honor the customer's mandate is restricted to the branch where the account is kept, which means that the customer cannot complain if the checks are dishonored at other branches. Now let's understand the other responsibilities of a paying banker. After having understood that the form of the check is in the proper form, the next thing that the bank has to take into consideration is the date of the check. So the date of the check should be such that it is a valid date. Now, what is the provision regarding validity of date? The provisions are like this: a check can be used or check can be valid only if it is used within 3 months of the date of its issue. So any check which is beyond 3 months from the date mentioned on it cannot be regarded as valid, and such checks are called as stale checks. So firstly, the bank has to see whether the date has been put on the check. Secondly, the bank has to see whether the check is acceptable and is in circulation. If the check is stale, then there is no chance that the bank can honor the check. The bank needs to just put a remark on the check saying that it is out of date. Now, even if a check is out of date or a check is a stale check, still the drawer's liability on the check remains. That means it is not extinguished. The drawer or the maker of the check still remains liable to the holder up to 6 years from the date of the check, which is the date of issue. The drawer escapes liability only if he establishes that because the holder has delayed in presenting the check, he is suffering from damages. In other words, in a stale check, the drawer's liability, the one who prepared the check, their liability remains for 6 years. Unless they can prove that this liability cannot be laid on the drawer because the holder has delayed the presentation of the check. Now, if the date is missing from the check, the paying banker can ask the drawer to fill it up and then present it again for payment within a reasonable period of time. The check, if it is not in a complete form, if the check is not mentioned, then also the banker can return the check and ask the drawer to prepare it properly, or the banker can write upon the check that it is irregularly drawn. So, for example, the date is mentioned as Friday 1998. If the date is mentioned that way, the bank can return the check and say that it is irregularly drawn. So the day of the week is not important. What is important is the date, the month and the year. So if the date is incomplete in that respect, the bank can return the check or ask the drawer to prepare it once again or rectify the mistake and present it once again. Now, a check cannot have a date which is not there in the calendar. For example, there are certain dates which are not there in the calendar, like February 30th, September 31st, or November 31st. So such checks can also be returned, or the drawer can be asked to correct the mistake. If the date has been materially altered, that is, some correction has been made on the check, and this correction has not been authenticated with the signature of the drawer, then also the bank can refuse to make payment on the check, because the date of the check is a very important part of the check. So any material alteration which is done on the date of the check should be again authenticated with the drawer's signature, or else the bank should seek the drawer's permission before making the payment on the check, because there are chances that the correction has been done by some other person. Now, regarding the validity of the check, we cannot say that a check is invalid just because it is antedated or post-dated. The spelling of antedated is ANTEDATED. So I repeat, a check cannot be regarded as invalid if it is antedated or post-dated. Antedated check is a check which has a prior date, which means a date earlier than its date of issue. So even if a person puts a prior date, like say for example, today is 5th of May, and I issue a check of 3rd May, this check also will be valid provided the condition of it being in circulation for 3 months is considered. So antedated check does not become invalid just because the date mentioned on it is a day before its issue. A post-dated check is a check on which the date will be a later date or a future date. However, the bank can make payment on such post-dated checks only after the date has arrived, not before that. Now, the reason why people prepare post-dated checks, that is a check with a future date, is so that they get enough funds in the bank, and then only the person or the payee collects the money on the check. So in order to arrange for adequate funds in the account of the drawer may put a future date. So therefore, both antedated or post-dated checks are not valid. The only difference between the two are one is bearing a date prior to the date of issue. So while I may be issuing the check for today, the check may be having a earlier date, that could be a day before or 2 days before or 1 week before date. As long as it is fulfilling the condition of not being a stale check, then it can be regarded as a valid check and the bank can make payment on that. And however, in the case of a post-dated check, bank can make payment only after the date has arrived. The next important fact that the paying bank has to take into consideration is the amount of the check. The bank should look at both the words as well as figures which are mentioned in the check, and both should match. Suppose there is a difference between the words and the figures, the bank can consider or give more importance to the words rather than the figures, because there in a hurry the drawer of the check may have made some mistake. So let's take an example. Suppose the check has been prepared for rupees 40,000 and in words it is mentioned as 40,000, but in the figures column it has been put as 4,000. So in this case the bank can give more importance to the words rather than to the figure. But in order to protect itself, the paying banker can contact or seek information from the drawer once again before making payment on the check. So thereby the bank can avoid being negligent while honoring the check. I have already spoken to you about the customer having enough balance in their account. So before making payment on the check, the bank should consider whether the customer is having enough balance in his account, and the bank should not bother about whether any other money is still to be received by the customer. If the money has not been realized and credited in the account of the customer, the bank cannot go forward with the honoring of the check. Only once it's realized and there is enough money in the account can the bank pay the money on behalf of the customer. The next thing that the bank has to consider is the chronological order of payment. This is required when the bank receives several checks on the same day for making payment from the customer's account. Chronological order means the order in which the checks have been received. So if the balance is insufficient to meet even a single check, then all the checks can be returned. But if the bank finds that some of the checks can be honored, then the banks can use its discretion and accordingly pay the amount on the check. Else the bank can contact the customer and decide which check should be given priority while making payment. The other thing that the bank has to consider is whether the check has been mutilated. The check is said to be mutilated when it is torn into 2 or more pieces and thereafter it is pasted and kept. Now, when such a check is presented for payment, the bank should look into the fact whether the material information on the check has got altered because of such mutilation. So if the check is no longer clear, or there is a difficulty in understanding the legibility of the material facts on the check, then the bank can refuse to make the payment. But if the check has been accidentally torn, the banker can pay it after getting the collecting banker's guarantee. In all other situations, the bank can that is the payee bank or the drawee bank can return the check by putting a remark on the check as torn check or mutilated check. If the banker has enough proof that the drawer wanted to cancel the check by tearing it into pieces, the bank has got every right to dishonor it. Now, the bank is also justified in refusing payment in such a case, but where the check is not exactly torn into 2 but it is only mutilated in some corner, the bank can exercise their discretion. The bank can pay if it is satisfied with the parties, though there is nothing to prevent the bank from dishonoring it. The bank can always claim that the check is not in its proper form and therefore they have decided to dishonor it. Now the next thing that the bank should take into consideration is the time of presentation of the check, which means is the check presented during a working day of the bank and whether it is presented during the banking hours. So different banks may fix different hours of working, and even different branches of the same bank can have different hours at different places after considering the conveniences of the customers. So whenever the presentation of the check is done for payment, it should be during the business hours. If the customer reaches the bank premises within the banking hours, he is generally paid even after the banking hours. So the bank has to ensure that the person has reached the bank within the business hours of the bank. Another thing to be ensured by the bank is regarding the material alteration. As I told you a little while earlier, material alteration means where the instrument is changed from its original form in such a manner that it changes the rights and liabilities of the parties to the instrument. So if any changes are done to the identity and legal character of the instrument, we call it as material alteration. Now, banks will be held responsible if they are negligent with respect to the material alteration made on the instrument. So the precaution that the bank has to take in such a case is bank should require the drawer of the check to attest the alteration by their full signature, and this signature of the drawer should tally with the specimen signature which is there with the bank. Where the check was drawn by joint account holders, all of them should attest such alterations. If a bank pays a check which has been altered without the customer's consent, then the bank has no right to debit the customer's account. It no longer represents the customer's mandate, and so the bank has to bear the loss by themselves, unless the bank is in a position to recover the money from the person responsible for such alteration. So therefore, banks have to take great care while looking into the material alteration of checks. The next thing that the bank should take into consideration is whether the customer's signature has been forged or not. If the signature is forged, the bank cannot debit the customer's account, and if the bank does such a thing, the loss will fall on the bank. Now there are exceptions to this, and we'll discuss this one by one. The exceptions are like this. If the customer gives the impression to the bank that the signature is his own, in that case the bank will not be held liable. Also, where the customer came to know about the forgery and failed to inform the bank in time and then prevented the bank from taking action against the forgery, in such a case also the bank will not be held responsible. Where the customer knew about the wrongful use that was being made of the checks but did not warn the bank, and this results in the forgery being persisting in all activities, here also the bank will not be held responsible. So bank can escape from the liability under these situations, but if to avoid being made liable, the bank should ensure that they have checked up with the signature of the customer with that of the specimen signature with them. The bank has a duty towards the customer to inform him of any check which is dishonored for reasons of forgery. The next thing that the bank should look into is the endorsements. The banker should see whether the check presented to him requires to be endorsed, which means that whether it should be signed by the person who is withdrawing cash on the back of the check, especially in the case of bearer check. If it is so, the bank should check whether all the endorsements on the check are regular or not. Regarding crossing, the bank should check whether it's an open check or it's a cross check. If a check is an open one, it can be paid across the counter. But if the cross check is paid across the counter, the bank will be liable to the true owner for any loss which is sustained by the owner on account of such payment. Then the bank should check whether the check is drawn on the branch of the bank or on some other branch. Now, if the check is drawn on the same office at which it is presented or on a different office, the bank should be looking into that. If the customer keeps the account with one branch and presents the check at another branch, it is difficult for the manager of the latter branch to know whether or not the payment is permissible with respect to the customer's account. The paying banker cannot even verify whether the instrument is genuine or forged because of the fact that the customer's signature will be at the branch where the account is kept. Therefore, the check should be presented only at the branch where the account is kept and not at any other branch where the bank is having bank is having a branch. So customers are required to present checks only at the branch where the account is kept and not at any other branch. The physical condition of the check should therefore be seen with respect to its mutilation, with respect to its completeness, and with respect to the crossing, with respect to the amounts. If the bank takes into consideration all these factors, then the bank can go ahead and honor the check. So let me now discuss a few situations under which the banker can refuse payment. The banker can dishonor a customer's checks in the following cases: where a post-dated check is presented. Second, where the where the customer does not have sufficient funds in his account. Third one, where the check is of doubtful legality. Fourth one, where the check is not duly presented, which means that it is presented after banking hours. Fifth one, where a check is irregular or ambiguous or materially altered. Sixth one, where the check is presented at a branch where the customer has no account. Seventh one, where the check is presented after it has become stale, that is, after being in circulation for more than 3 months. Eighth one, when some people have joint account and the instrument has to be signed by all and all the people have not signed. In that case also the bank can dishonor the check. The ninth situation is where the funds in the account of the customer is not applicable to the payment of customer's check. In such case also the bankers can refuse payment. I have spoken to you about countermanding of check. Countermanding of check means making a stop payment of the check. So generally a check is prepared and given to the bank so that the paying banker can make payment on it. But sometimes a necessity arises to make a stop payment when either the check is stolen or there is a dispute between the drawer and the payee after the check is issued. So under such situations, if the drawer of the check feels that they need to stop the payment on the check, they can inform the bank about it, and accordingly the bank will make a instruction so that the amount on the check is not paid. Generally, banks do not entertain oral instructions regarding stop payment of check, but in case of emergency, you can call their customer care and inform them to urgently stop the payment on the check. However, thereafter the bank may require the customer to give it in writing that they have instructed the bank to make a stop payment. Otherwise, the bank will be made liable for damages and bank will not have any proof to escape from this liability. Therefore, countermanding of payment means stopping the payment of a check, and this is how the bank should ensure that they do not become liable for any kind of damages. So some important points in the context of countermand which the bank must take note of are like this. The countermand comes into operation as soon as the bank is made aware about it and told to take action about stopping the payment. So the countermand comes into operation from that moment itself. If the bank does not follow the stop payment instruction, then the bank can be exposed to liability of damages. The countermand can be effected by any means by which the intention of the customer is made known to the bank so as to withhold the payment. As I told you, it can be told orally and later on written instruction can be given to the bank. This countermand notice which is given to the bank must be unambiguous, which means clear instruction should be given to the bank by clearly mentioning the serial number of the check and for whom the payment was made and what are the reasons for doing a stop payment and so on. Now, in case a wrong number is given to the bank, then the bank incurs no liability for not being able to exercise the instruction of the customer. Now, let's say the customer has given the name of the payee, the amount as well as the date of issue of the check, and the bank has reasonably and honestly read all these instructions and made the payment on the particular check. Suppose in spite of giving all this information and the bank has acted carefully, still there is some confusion, then the bank will not be held liable for any loss which the customer may have incurred. If at all the bank feels that there's a lack of clarity in the instructions given by the drawer of the check for making the stop payment, the bank is entitled to delay the carrying out of his instructions until they get the confirmation. However, in the meantime, the bank should take care not to damage the customer's credit. The bank is also required to give this countermand instructions to the branch of the bank where the account is maintained, because that is the branch that is going to be acted upon. A notice of the stopping of the check at one branch of the bank does not mean that a notice has been given to all other branches. So, if a countermand has been received by a wrong branch, this branch should then take steps to make it effective at the right branch. When a stopped check has been paid, the customer's account will have to be recredited and the bank cannot escape this liability even if it was paid by negligence. When two or more persons are authorized to sign checks, whether severally or jointly as joint holders of the account or as authorized agents on behalf of the account holders, the banks generally act on stop payment instructions issued by any one of them, whether the check is signed by that person or not. Also, a stop payment order can be cancelled after it is issued by the drawer and then the check becomes payable by the banker. So these are some of the points that has to be considered in the context of countermanding, which the paying banker should be paying attention to. So apart from countermanding of checks, what are the other situations in which the bank can refuse to pay the amount of the check? Suppose the bank has received information about the customer's death, then the customer can make a stop payment of the check. But the notice of death should be proven, and the bank can suspend thereafter all operations in that account till some executor or administrator has been appointed. So suppose the bank gets to know about the death of the customer through a notice which has been put in the newspaper, that is sufficient proof that the customer has died, and thereafter the bank can suspend the operations of that account. Also, when the bank receives information about the insolvency of a customer, then also the customer can stop making any payments on the check. Insolvency means where the customer is not able to pay any amount to their creditors. How does the bank come to know that the customer is insolvent? The bank should have the notice that is issued by the court declaring a particular person as an insolvent. Only once they receive that notice can the bank decide that the customer has become insolvent and is not in a position to pay the amount, pay any amount to their creditors. Now, this notice of insolvency can be received from the court either by a petition which is made by the customer himself or by a petition which is made by the customers. Once a person is declared as insolvent, then the court appoints an official receiver or assignee so that the creditors can receive the money which is due to them from such official receivers or assignees. All properties and investments of the customer will thereafter be controlled or managed by the official assignee or the official receiver for the benefit of creditors. So then it is these people, that is official receiver or official assignee, that who will take steps to stop payment of all checks. But the checks which were paid before the date of insolvency order shall be considered to have been properly paid if the banker at that time had no notice of the insolvency petition and the transactions were otherwise bona fide. That means done with a good intention and in good faith. Suppose a joint stock company which has an account with the bank is to be liquidated, then the board of directors of the company should be in a position to give a statement to its members that the company is in a position to meet its liabilities. But if the company is not in a position to meet its liabilities, then the board of directors should inform the court that they will appoint an official liquidator for winding up the affairs of the company, and in that case that official liquidator will take care of all the assets and liabilities and make arrangements for payment towards the creditors. So banks have to take into consideration whether the liabilities will be paid by the company itself or the company will take the assistance of the official liquidator who is appointed by the court for making payments to its creditors. So accordingly, if the official liquidator is appointed, then all the payments from the account will be made by the official liquidator only. A bank can also refuse payment if they receive information about the customer's lunacy or customer's mental incapacity. So suppose the checks were issued during the time when the customer was of sound mind, then those checks, payment on those checks can be allowed and the bank is not going to be liable to anybody for damages. But however, the bank should be careful about receiving information regarding the customer's lunacy. The bank should not rely upon hearsay information, which means the bank should not rely upon rumors about the customer's insanity. The bank should get a proper notice, that is a government certificate or a doctor certificate from a government hospital which confirms the news of the mental disorder of the customer. Thereafter, the bank can suspend all payments from the account of the customer. If the bank has received information from the court regarding a garnishee order, then the bank is bound to comply with this order of the court, which restrains the bank from paying money out of a customer's account. So after the receipt of a garnishee order, the bank should refuse to make payment of check until the garnishee order has been withdrawn. Further, the bank should refuse to make payment if they have received an injunction from the court. An injunction may be issued by the court so as to freeze a bank account. It's an order which restrains a bank from making payment temporarily. For example, if there is a private money lender who is cheating investors by paying neither the interest nor the capital amount, the investors can file a petition in the court and ask for an injunction to be issued which attaches the movable property, immovable assets and bank account of the money lender. So until the ownership issue is settled, the banker will be prevented from paying money from the account of the customer. So if there is an injunction which is issued by the court, then the bank has to freeze the money that is lying in the account of the customer and not make any payment from such a bank account. Then in the case of the outbreak of war, in that case also the bank has to temporarily suspend operations from the account of a customer. When the country is in war with another country, then the bank has to temporarily. Now in the case of a war, generally it affects countries where they have international transactions with one another. So in such cases, having importance given to public policy, the government can request the banks not to honor the checks. But this does not mean that the payment on the check is completely stopped. It means that it is only temporarily suspended. So as soon as the war is over, the customer can rightfully make a demand for payment of the balance that is lying to the customer's credit, unless they are again prohibited by the government. So if there is an outbreak of war with a foreign country, the government can order the banks not to make any payment from the customer's checks, and this comes into play majorly when there is international transactions carried out. Also, the payment of check can be denied if some trustees are maintaining a bank account in the name and benefit of a trust, and the bank is informed that the trustee is operating the account in breach of the trust. So if they are not following if the trustees are not following the terms and conditions of the trust, and the beneficiaries or the author of the trust feels that they are violating the conditions mentioned in the trust deed, then the banker, upon receiving such information, can decide not to make any payment which is demanded of the trustees. Also, in the case of defective title of the holder, the bank can refuse to make payment. This means that if the holder of the check, that is the person who is presenting the checks to the bank, has got a defective title, then the banker must refuse payment. For example, if the holder of the check is an insolvent, as per the declaration of the court, then the bank can refuse to make payment because the proceeds of the check must go to the official assignee so as to settle the debts. The holder of the check has no right to collect the funds directly once he has been declared as an insolvent. This we have understood a little while earlier as to the provisions of insolvency. The next one is when the customer decides to close their account. When the customer has decided to close their account, then no payment can be made from that account. So if the customer wishes to close an account and gives a notice to this effect to the bank, all checks presented from or after that date of notice will have to be refused. That is, payment should be refused. In legal terms, closing of an account is generally used with the same meaning as a banker would use for stopping an account. In banking practice, stopping an account means ceasing to permit operations on that account. So under all these conditions or under all these situations, the banks are supposed to not pay any money from the customer's account. Now let's look at some of the customary answers or remarks which are given by the bank when they refuse to make payment on the check. Sometimes the banks might put the words refer to drawer on the check. The words refer to drawer is also abbreviated as R/D, that is capital R/D, which stands for refer to drawer. When check is returned for non-availability of sufficient funds, then the customary answer that is given by the banker is R/D, which means that then the holder should approach the drawer to know the reasons for the dishonor. Now, if the banker uses these words, that is R/D, to state the reason when the customer has funds, then the banker will be liable for having damaged the image of the customer. The bank can also write the words funds insufficient when there are insufficient funds in the drawer's account. So within quotes, the bank will write funds insufficient. R/D stands for refer to drawer. This could be for any reason that the banker is asking the holder of the check to approach the drawer. It could also be for insufficient funds. There is another remark which the banks put on the check, which is called as not arranged for. This remark is put when the check has been drawn against an overdraft which has not yet been sanctioned, or the payment of the check would result in exceeding the overdraft which is already sanctioned. So in these cases, the bank puts the remark as not arranged for. One more remark which the banks generally put is effects not received, please present again. I repeat, effects not received, please present again. This remark indicates that the customer might have paid some items into his account for collection which have not been realized so far. That is, some checks have been put or drafts have been put into the account for collection, but the realization has not taken place till date. If the customer draws a check on the basis of those items realized, he will be advised to present it again after some time when the collection is expected. Another remark that the bank puts is exceeds arrangement. A banker uses the phrase exceeds arrangement where an overdraft might have been sanctioned for the customer, but as a result of paying the check which is presented to it, this would result in the overall limit of the overdraft sanctioned to the party. So if the overall limit of overdraft is getting exceeded, then the bank puts the remark as exceeds arrangement. The bank also puts a remark called as full cover not received. This remark points out that either the customer has not deposited enough funds in his account to meet the requirements of the particular check, or has failed to provide sufficient security to cover an overdraft which is likely to be created after paying the check. So the remark in such a case is full cover not received. Another remark that the bank puts is payment stopped by drawer. If after issuance of check the customer is making a request to the banker not to honor the check, the bank puts the remark as payment stopped by drawer. Yet another remark that can be put by a bank is payee's endorsement is incomplete or required. Where the bank finds that the payee's endorsement is incomplete or not properly done, which means it's not regular, there the bank can use the remark payee's endorsement incomplete or required. Suppose the payee's endorsement is not readable, then the bank puts the remark as payee's endorsement illegible, ILLEGIBLE. Sometimes bank also puts the remark as power of attorney in favor of the person who issued the check is not registered in our books. The remark can be power of attorney in favor of the person who issued the check is not registered in our books. In the case of a deceased person, DECEASED, in the case of a deceased person, that is a person who has died, to confirm the legal representative, it is a must that the power of attorney must be registered in favor of the legal representative. So if this has not been done, then the bank uses the remark power of attorney in favor of the person who issued the check is not registered in our books. Another remark that a bank uses is drawer's signature incomplete or differs. This is when the banker is seeking for clarification regarding the drawer's signature and it is not matching with the signature that is there in the records of the bank or in the specimen signature. So there the bank can use this remark, drawer's signature incomplete or differs. Yet another remark that can be given by the bank is alteration in date, figures or words. Whenever the bank finds an alteration which is made in the date, figures or words and this is not authenticated or attested by the signature of the drawer, then the bank puts such a remark, that is alteration in date, figure or words. If the bank finds that the check is mutilated, the bank can use the remark check is mutilated. If a post-dated check is given to the bank or presented to the bank for payment, then the remark that the bank puts on it is check is post-dated. Similarly, if a check which is more than 3 months old is presented to the bank, then the bank uses the remark stale check on the face of the check. The bank can also use the words amount in words and figure differ if they find a mismatch to have occurred between the words and figures written on the check. If an open check is given to the bank and the bank refuses to make a payment on such open check, then the bank can use the remark cross check should be presented through a banker. That's the remark that the bank will put, crossed check should be presented through a banker. If the customer has died and the account has become non-operational, then the bank puts the remark as drawer deceased or abbreviated as DD. So this will be the remark that the banker puts on the check which is presented for payment for a dead customer. If the crossing is a double crossing, that is it is crossed to two banks, then the bank can put the remark on the check as crossed to two banks. This is especially where the second bank is not an agent for collection of the former bank. So in such case, the bank refuses payment and puts the remark as crossed to two banks. Where the customer or the bank has closed the account, where the customer's account is closed either on the request of the customer or the bank themselves have closed the account, and the banks want to refuse payment on the check, then the bank uses the remark account closed. In case of insolvency of the customer and non-operation of the account because of such insolvency, the remark that is put on the check is drawer insolvent. If the notice of insanity has been received by the bank from a doctor, then especially of a government hospital, and the account of the customer is not operational because of such notice, then the bank can put the remark as drawer insane on the face of the check. If the banker finds that the check is irregularly drawn, then the bank can use the remark check irregularly drawn. Suppose the bank wishes to not pay on a check because of a court order, then the remark that they use is payment stopped under court order. Now this stopping of payment under court order could be either because of a garnishee order or because of an injunction that is received from the court. Under both these situations, the banker uses the words payment stopped under court order. The bank uses the remark countermanded by drawer, where the drawer of the check has made a request to the bank to do a stop payment of the check. So these are the commonly used remarks that a bank uses while they refuse to make payment on the check. And we all know that the relationship between the banker and the customer can be terminated either by mutual agreement or by giving a notice to one another. Under mutual agreement, both the sides. So termination of relationship between banker and customer can happen in any of the following ways. One is by mutual agreement. Generally, when the customer has a change of residence or a change of job, transfer from one place to another, the customer may request the bank to close their account with them, and the banker agrees to it. So we say that there is a mutual agreement between the customer and the bank to close the account. In such cases, the bank will give the balance that is lying to the credit of the customer's account, and overdraft will be settled if there is any. And after all such settlements are done, the account gets closed. The second situation under which the relationship can be terminated between banker and customer is by giving a notice to terminate. Sometimes the banker sends a letter to the customer to close the account, either because there are very less transactions that has taken place for a very long time, or because the customer is not following the statutory requirements of the bank. So an example of this is where the customer is required to maintain a minimum balance with the bank, but the customer refuses to do so even after repeated requests with checkbook facility. The banker in such case will give sufficient time, and it will be specified in the notice sent to the customer that if they are not willing to adhere to the terms and conditions of the bank will be forced to close the account of the customer. So this is regarding a notice to terminate the account. The third situation where the banker-customer relationship can get terminated is because of death of the customer. The death of the customer or dissolution of the company can lead to termination of account. So if the company is getting itself liquidated, that also can lead to termination of account of company with the bank. Lunacy of customer is another situation where the account of the customer can be terminated. However, the bank should get evidence of the insanity or notice of the insanity from reliable sources, otherwise the bank will be held liable for damages and wrongful dishonor of checks. The fifth situation under which the banker-customer relationship gets terminated is when the customer becomes insolvent or bankrupt, or the company becomes bankrupt, and because of the bankruptcy the company is winding up. So these are the situations under which the banker customer relationship gets terminated, and as a result of the termination of relationship, the banks are not able to honor the checks of the customer. So the paying banker has to dishonor the payment of checks when the relationship has got terminated between the banker and the customer.